Good evening. Welcome to Sunday evening's Bible News Update. We're going to do a Bible News Update this evening. We're going to skip Genesis for a week. We'll get back to Genesis next week. I hope you're keeping up with us. We're going to be getting into some very interesting things in the book of Genesis. But I thought in the midst of this kind of a shutdown, remember our grandson has the Wuhan Chinese virus, and he is laid up for a while. Please pray for him. He's got a temperature still over 100, coughing pretty heavy. So pray for him. And then for all of us, again, we want to get back into church. And so I just sense, and other people sense, we need to do something. So here we are doing something. And we hope it's beneficial to you this morning's service and then tonight. So here we are locked up, and we're hearing the news, and all we're hearing about COVID, but then elections, and so and that's ultra important, and we're going to get into some of that tonight. But we just want to open with a word of prayer, and then get into some news that maybe you haven't heard of or maybe touched on, and we just want to look at those things that the Bible talks about, Jesus said talk about. We're going to just skip over some things, but we'll get into some significant details that nobody is talking about. I can't say nobody, there's a few, but you got to look for it, you got to listen for it, and I hope to do that for you, kind of be a watchman, if you will, at the door. Mark said, Jesus told disciples in Mark, I think it's 10, or he said, a watchman stays at the door, and so we want to be that watchman. Lord, we thank you so much for your grace and your mercy. We love you so much, and we look forward to seeing what you're doing. Help us to understand the times, as the men of Issachar did when David was running from Saul. The men of Issachar knew what was happening, and they fled to David's side. And they were wise, and they told the king what he needed to do, and we know what happened there. So, Lord, we just pray that we are wise, listening and watching for the times, and doing what you want us to do. Let us be like Habakkuk and others who stand up and write these things down plainly and carry it to those who need it. And we pray this in your holy name. Amen. Let's just get right into some news here. Real briefly, I just thought I'd throw this up there because this happened 2 days ago. Donald Trump said, though I was confirmed as a Presbyterian church as a child, I now consider myself to be a non-denominational Christian. Now, why do I start with this? Well, the other day, about a week ago, somebody asked him who the most important person in the world was. And you probably heard this by now, and he said it now in his rallies a few times, that people were saying, you're the most famous person in the world. And he kind of argued. He said, no, I'm not. And then he said, Jesus Christ. And then he looks up to God, and he says, we know where our blessings come from, and those kinds of things. Now, I'm not going to judge this man. He uses words and says things that I wouldn't say and shouldn't say, and all those kinds of things. But remember this, it's very important. I just need to emphasize this. We're not voting for a pastor. We're voting for a president. And the government keeps us safe. That's what the book of Romans and Peter says, that's what he is there for. He bears the sword for nothing. He doesn't bear the sword for anything, for nothing. He bears it to protect us, to shut down our borders, to keep people safe. Remember the laws to Israel. They're helpful to us. The laws that God gave Israel concerning the plague. Take, for instance, the plague. People who have the plague, people who have the virus, are supposed to be quarantined from the rest of the people. That's out of Leviticus. You don't quarantine the entire nation, because that shuts down your economy, and it commits. When you do things that are not godly and biblical, you take it out of God's hands, and we bear the consequences. We have higher suicide rates. Our economy almost crashed, and those kinds of things. And now we need a president who is strong-minded, and we are going to come out of this. It's not the plague that kills the earth. It's the Lord who comes back and judges it. So we just need to come out of this. We don't want anybody to die, and I think people who are vulnerable need to be careful and watch themselves, and we need to help protect them, but we need not to shut down. So unless somebody needs to be quarantined, like Sonia and I, who lived with Austin. He was just moving out when he got it, and we helped him move out and stuff, and so we're just being careful because we don't want to take it to our folks. So
It's echoing on the screen. I don't know how to fix that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. How's that? I heard I have an echo here, so let me try something here.
No, it's still echoing.
Let me see something. I wonder if I shut my... What's that like? What's that like? Sonia, what's that like?
You're behind.
Okay, so let's just carry on here. That's what Trump's been saying. Now, so we need to vote. One way or the other, we need to vote, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. Some good news first. Let's talk about the church. We're watching what the church, what's happening outside the church, what the numbers are doing, what's going on. You may know by now that the United Methodist Church is in a significant split right now, and many of them are going over to the conservative side. There's now 3,000 churches that are aligned with the conservative side, and they're going to start a new side of the Methodist Church. So the evangelical side of the Methodist Church is actually growing, which is actually good news. Amid the decline of the entire congregation, the solid Christians are standing for the Lord. And whether you're Calvinist or Wesleyan, Methodist, if you believe in the salvation of Jesus Christ and you're looking to Him for your salvation and you're preaching the Word and working through this, the Lord's going to save you. And so it's just a wonderful thing to see that is happening. By the way, before I forget, I don't know what to do about that echo. Before I forget, let me just calm down my voice here a little bit. Maybe that'll help a little bit. But I want to give a shout out to Ali Farhadi. He is one of our missionaries, him and his wife Veronica, and he's from Iranian descent and she's Russian descent. And they're married and doing great work. And he called me. We've been conversing the last week or so, and pretty heavily. And he called me the other day and said that he had his 10th birthday as a born again Christian. So shout out to Ali and his wife. That's fantastic. But so carrying on, some other good news here. 1/3 of pastors have endorsed candidates this year outside the church roll, polls say. Now, this is good, to a good extent, I think. Let me just read a couple of things that was said about this here in the Christian headlines here. Protestant pastors are nearly unanimous in their decisions not to endorse a political candidate from the pulpit this year. From the pulpit, although roughly 1/3 say they have endorsed a political candidate outside of the church. The poll found that 98% of Protestant pastors have not endorsed a candidate from the pulpit this year, although 32% say they have endorsed a candidate outside of their church. So it's getting a little bit better there. 2/3 of pastors this year have not endorsed a candidate outside of their church. You know, I have endorsed President Trump. I'm not trying to be one out or trying to do anything like that, but I came across. I was doing this before, but I came across a sermon by George Whitefield, and he was alive during the time that King George II was being opposed by another man named Stuart, and there was violence going on and murder and plots and stuff. And George Whitefield came out and said to the people that we need this king, and you need to stand behind this king, and we are under the grace. We are under grace because of this king and those kinds of things. And so when those kinds of things are evident, we want to speak out. If we had an evil president or a bad president or a socialist president, we should say something about it. If we have somebody who's trying to keep us from those things, we should say something about it. The righteousness of the people exalts a nation. We cast lots. Proverbs says we cast lots. The decisions are in the hands of the Lord. But we need to make our voice clear. I'm going to make my voice clear that President Trump is pro-borders, pro-police, pro-military, pro-low taxes, pro-small government, pro-church, pro-God, pro-Jesus Christ. How much of those things? I'll go get a meter and figure out, which ones he is pro, for more. But I know this, that he's pro-U.S., and that we need to be voting for this man because, and I cry out now because of like Habakkuk, who's crying out for his nation. We see violence and stuff, and people are blaming Trump for the violence. People are blaming Trump because of the COVID virus, because of the 200,000 deaths. Listen, folks, let me just say this clear, that a plague, the Lord either allows or sends them. We won't go into this too much right now. But he's allowing it. That should say enough. And if he's allowed this, and we can do our best to stop it, which Trump has and others, the doctors or nurses and stuff, then we need to. But he's not responsible for the deaths of those people. The Chinese are. The people who grew this virus and let it out of their protection are responsible. Did they do it on purpose? That's another subject. But they're responsible either way. So again, we got off track just a little bit, but so Habakkuk again is crying out for the violence of his nations, and you can see now that there's violence in our nation all over the place. Here, protesters are attacking Jews for Trump, a vehicle convoy in New York City. You may have heard of what Governor Cuomo has said about the Jews and what the mayor of New York has done, has come out against the Jews for having funerals, for having either protests or they're marching, and they are actually targeting the Jews. Cuomo and the mayor, I can't remember his name, of New York City, and this is what's happening in New York. The cops need to go and stop this kind of stuff as they attack people. More violence, but this one's on the earth. This one is a 7.5 earthquake off the shores of Alaska. So that was a major earthquake. It's a very significant earthquake. A small tsunami came along with that, but no injuries with that. But in Turkey yesterday is a 7.0, and it is right on the border of Turkey there, just offshore. And it happened to be at a place called Izmir, and I lived there for a little over a year. And those buildings are made horribly. They're made with cement pads on sitting on top of concrete brick blocks. And when these 5-6 inch pads, those huge tonnage, when they break open and then they start falling, these floors start falling, they just go straight down to the ground. And that's what happened. You can see in this picture all the puffs of dust there. Those buildings just collapsed because when they rocked, there's no earthquake protection there at all. And so they're still digging out people, and we want to pray for the people of Turkey. It's a tragedy. Why did it happen there? Same reason it happened in Alaska, because they're prone to it. And the Lord said the earthquakes are going to get more numerous. I heard somebody say the other day that the earthquakes are going to get more numerous in the tribulation. And that is true. Major earthquakes that have never been seen before will happen in the tribulation. But remember what Jesus said. Jesus said you're going to see these things coming. When all these things begin, he says in Luke 21. So we'll be able to see that period coming with an increased intensity. And remember the birth pains coming closer and closer as that day approaches. Okay. Another hurricane reaches Louisiana coast. This is the fourth one this year, and that is an amazing number. Now they're going to start calming down here, but that is just devastating. Really, they can't dry up there in Louisiana. And other places, that storm followed the same path as the other ones did. They just go up and get caught up in the westerlies and head for the East Coast. Some people are getting some needed rain. There was almost a drought a couple of years ago in the southeast. That's pretty much over. Southwest could use a couple of these. But the biggest tropical system in 2020 just happened yesterday in the Philippines. And we just got a note from Kay Davidson in the northern section of the Philippines that she's not affected. The orphanage is not affected here. And then, so that's in the northern section, just above that black line there. And then in that southern island down there at the bottom, Barrio is there. Barrio and his family are there, Faith and his kids, and they are there on that island, and so they're safe. So we're glad to hear that. But this is a tragic storm, and we'll see how that comes out when it comes out into the South China Sea there. And then the next system coming to the United States here is supposed to hit, well, coming into the Caribbean area, is supposed to hit Honduras and Nicaragua, and then we'll see what happens if it gets caught up and keeps going easterly with the easterlies, or will it ramp around and come into the Caribbean? We'll have to wait and see. But we've hit record numbers of storms. We're well into the Greek alphabet. This is only the second time it's ever happened, and now we're using the record number, Zeta. We just use Zeta. And the season is coming to an end here in a couple weeks or so, 3 weeks. Supposed to be. We'll see what happens, but keeping an eye on these storms. So let's talk about the COVID Wuhan Chinese virus here a little bit. Cuomo again is following so many of the European ideas, and that is just to basically shut down everything. Now, when this first started back in February, March, it didn't take very long for some of us, me included, to think that, hey, they're going to start shutting down borders of states. Some state governors are not going to allow you in. They're going to want to see your vaccine. Once the vaccine comes out, you can bet that they're going to want to see your vaccine cards. Have you been vaccinated for the virus? Here, Governor Cuomo is the first. He's announcing mandatory testing for all out-of-state travelers. This is what do they call it? Draconian. This is ridiculous, and this is what's going to happen. See, folks, here's the deal. When the Antichrist comes, and when the left government comes, when the global government comes, many of them are going to be trying to do good for the earth. They're going to think they're doing good. They can outsmart God and fix the climate problem, fix the COVID problem, fix the wars, fix all of this stuff. And through their thinking they're wise, they're actually becoming fools. He's going to destroy his state economy. Remember, this is the same man that mandated that assisted living homes open up their homes for virus-infected patients, and many died. And so this is lunacy, and it's going to get worse. Again, this is another guy that would be great to be voted out, but they'll leave that to the people of New York. On top of that, Oregon has on its ballots the decision to decriminalize hard drugs. And this is going to be the first time in the United States. Now, why would they do this? They don't want people to go to prison. Their prison system is, the United States prison system is overwhelmed in many ways. And they want to lessen that. They want to change the penal system. They think it hurts the black community and other communities worse than it hurts the white community or Caucasian community. And that's neither here nor there. Now, there is some work we can do by first of all, not defunding the cops and keeping our justice system solid, but also maybe helping people with addictions and those kinds of things. But to legalize it is ridiculous, because now, I mean, where does this end? You can carry it with you. You can give it to whoever you want. This is really, really bad news. And again, there's been this race for the last 20 years of who is the most liberal state. Which one is the most liberal state? Is it Massachusetts? Is it Vermont? Is it Oregon? Is it Washington? Is it California? They're all in a dead heat as far as I'm concerned, and it's very, very sad. The Episcopal Church is declining. The attendance has fallen by nearly a quarter since 2009, and it fell from 750,000 people to just over half a million people. And so, now again, we're not happy to see this kind of stuff. But I will say this: evangelicals are holding steady or climbing. They're 20 to 21%, 22%, some say, in the United States. That's pretty high. I'm not sure if it's that high. That's a good number. But these denominations, which preach unity, universal salvation, they're preaching, Christ was a sinner, and the whole Bible. You're not supposed to preach the whole Bible. It's not all to be taken literally, and all of these things. And when you begin to talk that way from the pulpit, God is going to take sheep from you. And so it's another sad note, but it's something that's going on. Something I hesitate to talk about sometimes, but it needs to be, every great once in a while I need to bring this up. I've only started talking about this a little bit in the last couple of months. I don't like to talk about this because I want facts, number one. I want the facts. And number two, this is kind of scary. When you start seeing this kind of stuff, exorcism, increasingly frequent, including after the U.S. protests. Now, the Catholic Church is heavily involved in this, and they actually have a school for exorcism, and those classes have been significantly increased, the numbers to attend those classes for young priests. That's a whole discussion. If you want to discuss something about that, you can text me, email me, whatever, we can talk about it. But it is increasing in numbers and intensity. And I want to suggest something to you. Why don't we see a lot of this kind of stuff? And why don't we see a lot of the miraculous? I want to suggest something to you. That when God set this in motion and He put the church in order, and the church is keeping back the flood tides of evil in correlation and in hand with the Holy Spirit, of course, and the Word of God. But when things start to stir in heaven, you start to see it on earth. And the greatest demonic activity in history was when Jesus Christ was on the planet. And so when He came to the planet, the demons came in. They just came to kill Him, harass Him, do whatever they could, harass the disciples, and on. And then, for some reason, the Lord, again, the flood tide of evil, Thessalonians 2, the Holy Spirit Church is holding back this flood tide. But once this starts to give way, once we can see things changing, I think this stuff is going to increase. It is absolutely wide open during the tribulation. But if we start to see this stuff happening, we can know what is happening in heaven. War begins. There's anxiety in heaven. Satan's up there. He's asking for somebody's soul, or he's up there fighting for somebody. And, you've got the Prince of Persia, Prince of Greece. I think the Prince of the United States. You've got Gog. All these principal beings, these principalities that are fighting for territory right now. And things are changing. Things are about to change on the planet. We don't know to what extent. But we know that the scene for Gog and Magog is being set right now. That's evident. We'll get into that just a little bit here. Pope Francis, he has hinted at this, and now he just comes right out and says it. Pope Francis endorses civil unions for same-sex couples. And this is what he said. This is what this article says. Pope Francis has called for the creation of a civil union law that would help same-sex couples create families as children of God. Now, it's one thing to be a family, but you're going to create families to be children of God, challenging a previous conclusion by the Catholic Church that endorsing such unions would be an approval of deviant behavior. Homosexual people have a right to be in a family. That's true, absolutely true. What we have to create is a civil union law that way they are legally covered. Legally covered. So he's fallen in line with our Supreme Court. He's fallen in line with the left and the progressives. This guy is a prime candidate for the second in charge of the global government. I'm not saying he is, but he's a prime candidate. He is the most liberal pope that the church has ever had. Under Pope John Paul II, the church teaches that respect for homosexual persons cannot lead in any way to approval of homosexual behavior or to legal recognition of homosexual unions. Legal recognition of homosexual unions or placing them on the same level as marriage would mean not only the approval of deviant behavior, with the consequence of making it a model in present-day society, but would also obscure basic values which belong to the common inheritance of humanity. Pope John Paul, the inheritance of humanity by God is marriage and children. The church cannot fail to defend these values for the good of men and women, for the good of society itself. That's Pope John Paul. So this church has gone a long ways. Hang on just a second, please. A little light on the subject, if we can get it. And so there you have it. The Pope continues to go global on us, and it's a very sad thing. I read a good article several months ago, a very long article and in-depth article about the Second Reformation. And some people are calling for a Second Reformation in the Catholic Church. Now, it won't be a Protestant Reformation. Remember, well, it is a Protestant. Remember, Protestant is protest. We're protesting the Catholic Church, and so they're looking for another Protestant Reformation, but it won't be the same, of course, as Luther's. But this guy has gone way, way left. Biden said recently that Muslims will serve at every level of his administration. Now, folks, this is why you and I need to fight for President Trump. Because see, that whole idea that somebody deserves a position by their status, by their name, by their race, by even their gender, is absolutely antithetical to the Bible and good common sense. Somebody should rise to these positions because they're smart, they're able, they've been trained in it, and they love our country. But he picked a woman way before he even, well, when he first got in, he said he was going to pick a woman, which is fine if you have somebody in mind, but just to say, I'm going to pick a woman, or I'm going to pick a Muslim, or I'm going to pick, that's wrong. That's absolutely wrong. Now, yes, I believe, I can tell you right now, that Candace Owen, Nikki Haley, maybe Ivanka Trump, maybe later, who knows about her. But some of these people are very, Michelle Bachmann, some of these others are wonderful people and can be even president someday, I think. But just to say we want to do that because we want to break the glass ceiling, like Miss Clinton did? No, that's not right. And so here, this guy he says he's a Christian. He is Catholic. Just put it out there like that. He says he is. I'm not, spilling the beans here. But he's going to say he's going to put a Muslim at every level? Why? Why not say I'm going to put a person at every level? A qualified person. This is dangerous. And I'm going to just say this and finish this with this. Any Muslim must live under the Sharia law if they are in a caliphate or under the authority of a caliphate or one of their imams. So you can have a Gentile Islamic culture in Minnesota, Dearborn, Michigan. You can have these, but as soon as you have an imam and then you start having Sharia, they fall under Sharia law before they fall under the Constitution of the United States. Just like in reality we fall under the Bible before our Constitution, but our Constitution is democratic and republic, and it's a wonderful Constitution. It is based on the foundations of God in general. Why would we even open the door to this kind of stuff? This is absolutely dangerous to the United States and to the church. You know what Muslims are going to do for the church and against the church. And so that's just a bad, bad, bad issue. Let's see here. Biden says, today, trust is ebbing. Hope seems to be elusive. Instead of healing, we're being ripped apart, and I refuse to let that happen. Now, I agree with him. I agree with him. It isn't President Obama who caused this division. It isn't President Trump who caused this division. This division has been here, and it needs to be rooted out at some point. It needs to come out. And so the closer that we get to the end times, the more that every nation is going to be uprooted to some extent, come to grips with who they are and in and under God. And it is going to be a very, very trying time, as it is for us. Somewhat like Cuomo, Johnson is set to declare a month-long England lockdown. It's going to destroy their economy. They're trying to do Brexit right now. And so this is just a real horrible thing that the left continues to do. More in Europe. This is, again in Europe, 3 dead as women beheaded in knife attack in Nice, France, and 1 other in Quebec, Canada. So what is happening is these, what they call lone wolves, they're not really lone. They're affiliated with some kind of little nest of wolves. And what they're doing is they're kind of sent out to kill people. But what's really interesting now, look at the orange. As terror hits France again, Paris realizes a threat of Muslim Brotherhood and its sponsors. So now Macron has stepped up to be a little bit more conservative. Now he is concerned about extreme Islam in America now. He wasn't. And he was the one who said just even recently that we need to continue to open up the borders and stuff. But now the beheadings have come to his doorstep. France is to deport 231 Islamists after the beheading of a teacher. That's the first move. And then look at Live UA map that note below. France to dissolve pro-Hamas Muslim group, says Macron. So now the Muslims all over North Africa and in the Middle East and France, they're all crying for Macron's head. And one rabbi said they have the right to kill millions of French now. So it is coming to their doorstep because they opened up their borders to these people. And remember, Daniel says that feet mixed with clay, it's not going to work. It's going to. I think that they're going to throw this off. I think that the EU has to come to grips with this issue. But there are so many. Now again, there are peaceful people there as well. But the jihadists there, they have let in. Look, they're the next day, 231 are kicked out of France. So how many are in France that they have to go after now? So this is a very bad deal. This is leftist thinking, and this is why Trump wants to close our borders. I did hear, by the way, that the northern border is becoming more of a problem now that the southern border is being closed down. So now we have the Canadian border that we're going to have to start watching, but it's going to be easier to protect, and we'll see how that goes. So there's a cartoon of Macron, wicked Macron. Now he's the devil, and now they've got him impaled up there, and you can see the thousands of Islamists out there chanting for his head. So this is coming to his door. This is the man who went to Lebanon recently and tried to help them, and he told them recently, he said, "Okay, Lebanon, you're on your own because you don't want my help." So he really can't get anything done. He is a big talker. He can't get anything done. They thought he was the Antichrist for a while there. They thought he was going to be the savior. He still may be able to do something significant, but right now he's got very little pull. We'll see what happens. I think Germany is still kind of the head over there, but France is a significant force to be reckoned with. Their population, remember, they've been through more wars than almost anybody. And they've come out ahead on a bunch of them. World War II didn't work out too well for them there, but anyway, so they're a force to be reckoned with. We'll see how that works. By the way, remember their empire, much of their empire was in Africa, so they still have lots of friends in Africa and lots of influence in Africa. So, in Europe again, the number of Jews in Europe falls to 1,000-year low. It is exactly the number that it was during, I think, just before World War II, if I remember right. But now it's even fallen below that. So now, I want to remind you, I want to take this second just to remind you that half of the Jews in the world, approximately half of the Jews in the world, are in Israel, and the other half are in the United States. And those people have to go home. If they're elect Jews, if they love Abraham and love God, they will be saved, and they have to go home at some point. How do we get them home? Well, I hope this doesn't happen in our nation to cause them to run home, because they're running home from Russia and France and other places. So, and then finally, in the EU, we get cameras standing out in the street, people standing out in the street watching this guy. There was, I can't remember, at least dozens of people standing out, watching this guy on top of this church, which there's some signs all over the church. We try to help people and all those kinds of things. And this guy's up there tearing the cross off this church. What would you do? Enough of that. Hundreds protest at the Temple Mount against Macron. I should have had that up earlier. That's at the Temple Mount. So remember now, this is where the temple is going to be, the third temple. It has to be there at near the beginning, just before or just after the beginning of the tribulation. Now, Jews would not ever allow this to happen. But on the Temple Mount, remember that the Arabs have been given the right to secure the Temple Mount, even though it's in Israel, even though it's in Jerusalem. To keep peace, remember that God doesn't like this. He does not like this. But to keep peace, they've given the security of the Temple Mount to the Arabs and the Muslims in particular. And look what they're doing. They're up there chanting from Macron's head, and they hate Israel and they hate the United States, and so you've got this whole thing. And this continues to divide the East and the West. This continues to divide the Muslims and the Christians. This continues to divide the Magog alliance and the Dedan and Sheba alliance, and we'll get to that a little bit as well. But this continues to divide France from the Middle East as well. And so just a real quick note on this coalition, these two coalitions, one north, one south, if you want to call it that way. One of these coalitions contains Iraq, Iran. Iraq is starting to come out of that. We'll see what happens. Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, Qatar, and Gaza. And it is supported from the outside by Turkey, Russia, and China. So you see those? That's a significant alliance there. Now it's interesting. Remember this: Turkey, Russia, and China, they don't like each other. They all just don't like each other. But they hate America, and they all want oil. China, they get 80% of their production of energy oil from the Middle East, and so they have to come and get it at some point. Russia is dying, so they need more oil, and then Turkey is greedy, and they want the Ottoman Empire and the oil back as well. Turkey is in fairly good economic shape, although the lira has plummeted. They're in some trouble, but they're better off than Russia and China right now. So. Against it stands an opposing coalition made up of Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, Sudan, and Israel, supported from the outside by the U.S. Now notice that Europe isn't mentioned here. Now they're starting to come along and trying to encourage the Arabs on Israel's side, but it's been the United States. It's been President Trump. That's why he's been nominated for three peace awards. The remaining Arab states lie somewhere between the coalitions. Tehran, which is Iran, appears to be afraid of hitting back at Israel. Israel is thus effectively deterring Iran. Israel, through the friendships of this coalition, is deterring Iran, and this is good for all the Arab nations. I want to point one out, or maybe even two out. Morocco and Sudan. Sudan in particular will not stay there. They're one of the nations that come against Israel, and Sudan, they're dying over there. They need Western assistance, and they're trying to placate anybody they can get a hold of any kind of goods and money from. They were released from the terrorist list by Secretary Pompeo just recently. I don't like that move, but there really wasn't a reason to keep them on there, but there will be a reason to put them back on. So now this is kind of where the setup is in the world now, right? Now this is important. The Allies fear bad actors will take advantage of power vacuum during election chaos. So now this election is going to come to an end, but I want to take this further out than the Washington Examiner talked about. The Allies are concerned because the United States is not engaged. They're worried about the elections. Listen, it's worse than that. Trump is talking about pulling his troops home. He wants them to come home from Afghanistan, from Germany, from other places. And as he begins to pull back, that vacuum is going to continue. And people like Russia and Turkey in particular, but also China, those three in particular, and Iran, I say, those four in particular, they are stretching their tentacles out because they know that Trump doesn't want a war. And he's saying, peace through strength. We'll come and hammer you. We're going to carry a big stick and hammer you if you step out of line. It scares them, but they're testing the waters. And the more that Trump backs off, the more that the United States comes out of these places, the more that the GOG coalition in particular is ramping up. And we'll get into that here in a couple minutes as well. Talking about peace through strength. Look at this announcement. All U.S. Navy destroyers will get hypersonic missiles, says Trump's national security advisor. Not just that. They're going to give them eventually to 8 submarines, and I even heard President Trump say today that they're building many more submarines. They're going to all have these hypersonic missiles, and so there isn't going to be a navy in the world that can hurt us. But I want to point out a very interesting scripture to you. If you read Isaiah chapter 2, just go read Isaiah chapter 2. And down through there, depending on what version you have, because remember, some of these say, well, no, they really meant this and they really meant that. It talks about the ships of Tarshish and their beautiful craft, and they're going to be all destroyed. And so these, whoever Tarshish is, they've always had great ships. I think they may have become the Phoenicians, maybe, but they moved to Spain and England and then across the seas. And I think that we're the offspring of them in that way. We have the greatest ships on the planet, and the promise is that all the greatest ships on the planet will be absolutely destroyed in the day of the Lord. So we want to keep peace through strength, but we don't want to count on our missiles and our aircraft and our tanks. We want to count on the Lord. Some trust in horses, some trust in chariots, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. So keep that in mind. But we do, right now, remember, bearing the sword. Trump's bearing the sword, and we want him to be strong, and America to be strong during these times of relative peace. So what is America doing now? What is America doing? There isn't a vacuum, but watch where Trump is engaging right now. He's engaging with the military, new missiles, new subs, new Space Force, all this other stuff. Trump weighs in on water war at Ethiopia as Ethiopia begins filling the Renaissance Dam. This dam is going to be one of the largest in the world. It's going to shut off. Remember, the Nile flows north. And it's going to basically shut off much of the Nile. And Egypt is threatening to go to war. And Sudan is trying to stay out of it, but they're getting very concerned as well. And you can see that sign that says, the tag there says Grand Renaissance Dam. Right on the border of Ethiopia. And this is Pompeo and Trump are trying to stay here and say, hey, we need to calm things down. And there's a I think it's Isaiah 18. There's a prophecy and some other places about Kush. This is the area of Kush and Ethiopia, and this place is devastated. The Nile is dried up. It's a disaster during the tribulation, so we're going to see what happens there. But there's some problems there right now. Chinese military beefs up coastal forces as it prepares for a possible invasion of Taiwan. They're threatening the Trump administration. They're saying we're going to take Taiwan from you because we are, we allow our Navy ships to go to the South China Sea. We don't allow China to really rule the world over there, rule the ways they can't. Only 10% of their military, their Navy can go more than 1,000 miles, so they really can't rule the waves, but they want to rule their sphere. And Trump is not letting them. But now they're threatening Taiwan and they're threatening India right now as well. They're on the border of India, threatening them. They have been for quite a while. So Trump is working through this as well, and this is one place where I think he would stand up with Taiwan. Real briefly, when Russia took Crimea, we had a treaty with Crimea, and the treaty specifically says that we will go in and help them and secure them from any invader. When Russia walked in, we didn't do anything, and that was under President Obama, of course. So I hope that Trump maintains his hold in the South China Seas and his help with Taiwanese. But remember, we've already basically lost Hong Kong. They're under the security rule of China right now, and that's another horrible situation. The Mossad, that's Israel's intelligence agency. They say Saudi normalization ties will be announced after the U.S. elections. It's basically a done deal. They just haven't signed the papers. The Saudis are still, ranting and raving about the Palestinian lands and two-state capitals and all this stuff. But Saudi Arabia has led the way in making these Arabs, talking these Arabs into coming into a coalition. They're one of the big kingmakers over there. And for them to come on board is going to be a huge deal, and we'll see if they do. I think they will. I think Trump is going to pressure them. Hey, you want our help? You got to sign on the deal. He's the big guy that Trump wants. As for Russia, what are they doing? Russia's Navy is seen escorting Iranian tankers bound for Syria. So you've got these Iranian tankers also bound for Venezuela, and they were escorted by Russian ships, Russian Navy ships, and we can't really do anything about it. But this is what's happening as Iran is breaking these sanctions. Russia is helping Iran break these sanctions that the United States has on them, and Iran is transporting oil to nations that they're not supposed to be doing. But again, this is what is expected. And remember, Russia and Iran don't like each other, but they're going to help each other now because it's all about having the southern border. Remember, Russia's border, really right now, they're flying flags in the Golan Heights. Their border is as far south as southern Syria right now. And so things keep ramping up there. U.S. is threatening to destroy Iranian missiles shipped to Venezuela. So now, Iran is talking about sending missiles to Venezuela. The Russians have already landed a couple of nuke aircraft there. And so these are coming to our border, and these missiles can reach the United States. And so the United States is telling Iran, we're going to just destroy them. If they come over by ship, or it doesn't matter, we're going to destroy them. So we'll see what happens. I believe him and Pompeo are on the same page as well as that. Speaking of which, here's what Pompeo says. No nation that desires a peaceful Middle East should contemplate arms sales with Iran. Every weapon the regime buys will be at the disposal of its radical ideology. We are prepared to use domestic authorities to sanction individuals or entities contributing to these arms sales. And Iran has just put out, and this is credible, by the way. Lots of people have said, agencies, even the United States Defense Agency says this is credible. This is the Iran ballistic missiles. They can have ballistic missiles, they just can't have nukes. And this is their weapon systems and how far that they can go out. They can easily reach the middle of the Mediterranean into Europe, India, and parts of Africa. But the general problem is the Middle East, of course. So we'll see what happens. Iran's nuclear work goes forward at 2 covert sites. So they continue to do this. And a month or two ago, Netanyahu said again, the Prime Minister of Israel said again, we're not going to allow it to happen. When they come to that threshold, we're going to bomb them. And they already have bombed some of their facilities. And they will do it again. Jumping over to North Africa real quick. Libya's ceasefire raises hopes for a full peace deal. So this is falling right in line. Peace is good. But remember, Libya is a prime player of the Magog issue. And so what this is saying is that Turkey and Russia have calmed Libya down. And you can see that's going to happen in Syria and now Nagorno-Karabakh, which is in the Caucasus. They're fighting over that right now. Russia and Turkey on the opposite sides. They're really on the opposite sides in Syria still. They really haven't completely calmed that thing down. In fact, Russia killed some Turkish-backed troops the other day and killed 50 Turkish troops as well. And so it's interesting that they get away with this. These frenemies are fighting each other and yet trying to bring peace to these regions. And that's why Ezekiel 38 and 39 says that God's just going to turn them on themselves and they're going to kill each other with the help of God, of course, as well. But a Russian Russian airstrike on a rebel training camp in the northwest region of Syria on Monday killed over 50 Turkish mercenaries and wounded close to the same amount. So they're at a cold, well, not really cold, a warm war as well. And they have to calm all those things down. Turkey and Russia, they are the prime players coming into the war here. Russian troops in Armenia are overlooking the border of Nagorno-Karabakh. So the Russians have moved their troops. This is the Caucasus. This is where Turkey has gone into Azerbaijan and said, we're going to take that land back, get the Armenians out. Remember, in World War I, they killed, I think, over 1 million Armenians. It was a genocide. And they wanted, if it was up to them, they would wipe them out. Because Christians are generally, Armenians are generally Christians, generally, some kind of Orthodox. But there's lots of Muslims there now as well. But now Russia has stationed themselves on the border of Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh, which is that the region of Azerbaijan that Turkey says we're taking back. No matter what, nobody's going to stand in our way. And they've called for ceasefire. Turkey and Russia says they've got a ceasefire going. It's been broken a few times, but it'll follow the heels of the Syrian and Libyan issue as well. Turkey's future in Europe, relations strained over the S-400. Remember, Turkey bought the S-400 from Russia. The United States said, if you do that, you're not getting our F-35s, and you're not getting anything else. And so they did that. Congress said, you're done. Trump said, you're done. But they went ahead. They bought the S-400s. Turkey sanctioned 2 U.S. senators, and Turkey has reportedly tracked Greek jets with the S-400s. With the S-400s. And they're tracking American-made jets with the Russian system. See? We know this because they... Remember, Turkey and the United States have been friends for a long time, since about 1950 or something like that. And they have our jets. They have our radars there. They have a big base there. A bunch of our troops. They bought many of our jets. They used American-made F-16s and incorporated their Russian-made S-400s and tracked our jets, our man-made, our U.S.-made jets. And so it's really, to me, it's treason, and we ought to just pull out of Turkey. But they'll be slow to pull out of Turkey, but I think they need to, and I think they will. So in general, there's this declaration of war that Turkey has really made against Greece and against the EU in general. Chad, Nigeria, and Somalia there's Turkish militia training camps in those three areas. And I would also say there's, remember the Sudan camp? There's a camp off the coast of Sudan. And we know there's a huge camp in Somalia, we know that. So Turkey is invading Africa, and they're threatening, basically threatening Greece with war, and even France with war. Now he's calling Macron names, especially over this Islamic thing, and he is really giving it the what for to Macron and the West. And it's not going to be very long before he is talking in Trump's face as well. We'll see how that goes. Another good thing is the first Jerusalem-born American gets a U.S. passport that lists Israel as a birthplace. For more than 50 years, the United States would not put Israel or Jerusalem on a passport here in the United States. That American was born either in Palestine or someplace else. Trump has changed that. It's another thing that he's changed. Now, again, this is another thing that tells me that some people just do not understand our president. Some people say he's lambastic, he's this, he's that, he's a cretin, whatever. Yeah, he may be all of those things. But you know what he is? He secures our borders. He's pro-U.S. He's pro-God. He's pro-church. And he's showing it in his actions. We're not going to vote because of the way he talks and the way he just goes off sometimes, and he does. There's no doubt about it. He goes off. But I don't care about that. Is he taking care of my family? The highest GDP in history. We'll talk about that a little bit coming up. But here's another thing. Today we are one family, the family of the sons of Abraham. This coalition where the Arabs are backing Israel, and now the Arabs, you would not see this, the Arabs and the Jews are bumping elbows and saying we're one family. This is fine. It's peace for now, but it is a delusion. And these Arabs are going to come against Israel someday. They're going to give them up. Sudan is going to give Israel up. Come and get them. They're not going to stand by them. And so this is a delusion, but it is also, again, I want to mention that this is going to be the foundation of the peace, I believe, that the Antichrist will make with many. Remember, Daniel 9 says he doesn't make a covenant. He strengthens. It says confirms in our English, but he strengthens. He makes it bigger and better. The covenant between many. So he's going to take the Israel and the Arabs and then many of the rest of the world and make this covenant, and then he's going to break it in the 3.5-year mark. So this is a falsity. And we already know this because here's some Arabs in Sudan, which Sudan just yesterday or the day before announced that they're going to sign the papers. They're going to be treaty members with this coalition. Sudan is one of the ones that comes against Israel. So we know their hearts. They're concerned about money. They need money and Western air power and help. So let's get down to the end here. Donald Trump, re-elect me, and I will continue to deliver safety, prosperity, and opportunity for all Americans. Now, you have to ask in your heart, number one, did he do that before the Wuhan virus? Everybody's talking about the Chinese virus. COVID, what he says, COVID. Is it about COVID? He can't stop COVID. He cannot stop COVID. God could stop it. We will eventually probably come up with a vaccine and some of these things, but you can't just rush vaccines out there that aren't proven and tested. And he shut down the borders almost immediately to China and then to EU. And they were crying against him when he did, and now they're saying he didn't do enough. Listen, folks, we need to talk about what happened before the Wuhan virus. Who was he then? And then, who is he now? He's saying the same thing. I want my country back. I want people to go back to work. I want kids to go back to school. I want the churches to be open. I want us to worship under God. That's what he says. And I believe him. He's proven his point to me. So we need another 4 years of him. Don't Don't get caught by surprise. Here's Biden's car rally. This was taken a couple days ago. Got a couple hundred cars there. Probably got 400 or 600 people there. Maybe let's say he has 1,000. There's the two comparisons. 20 to 25,000 people for Trump. A handful for Biden-Harris. There's another one. Trump. President Trump's Arizona rally. 20% of attendees weren't Republicans. 20% of attendees were not Republicans. 36% of them didn't vote in 2016. That is a huge number. That's a huge number. And I personally love that number. Watch. President Trump holds a campaign rally in Battleground, Arizona. There's another, as far as the eye can see almost, there's another, as far as the eye can see almost on a tarmac. But watch what this man says. He was on Fox News the other day, and I went back and looked at his 13 criteria. This man's name is Lichtman. He says President Trump's going to lose. He will lose, according to this man. He's been right ever since 1988. He's been right. He's saying that 6 of these criteria, if you go, if you're at 6 or more, you're going to lose. 3 or more, you're in trouble. 6 or more, you're done. You can't win. And Trump has 7 against him, according to him. I don't want to go into which ones were which, but I know that the COVID virus was a problem. The foreign military, he says a foreign military failure. All these kinds of church challenger charisma, all these kinds of social unrest was a huge one, of course. So he's saying there's 7 of these, which is over half, are against President Trump. Now I'm going to say this. I'm going to put my heart out here right now. Okay, I think he wins. I think Trump wins. I think he wins. Because I've looked at a lot more than these kinds of things. I think he wins. However, what if he doesn't? What are you going to do? What are we going to do if he doesn't? What is Biden and Harris going to do with all the regulations that Trump got rid of, and all the oil and gas areas that he opened up, and all the public lands that he's opened up to hunting and recreation and all this stuff, and all the borders that he's closing down in the south, and all of these kind of regulations on Islamic people coming in, and those kinds of things, undocumented. Listen. We can't. Number one, we can't let our guard down. We need to go vote. You need to go vote. Number two, we can't trust in Trump. We can't trust in Trump because he's just a man. We love him. We want him to be our president. I wish he would talk differently sometimes, but he has my vote, and I hope that he wins. But if he doesn't, you and me are going to know 2 things. We're going to know the mind of the people, the mind of this nation, and we're going to know the mind of God. Because if God does not want Donald Trump president, he will not be. I don't care how many people he has at his rallies. He is. This guy's got more energy. You see how many? I think he did 5 rallies today. Nobody's ever done that. Trump, they're making jokes about Biden coming out of the basement and going across the border from Delaware to Pennsylvania and things like that. Well, he's gotten out a little bit more, but it's nothing like Trump. I've looked at the numbers on at the events. I've looked at the numbers on the viewings of YouTube. I've looked at the numbers, Fox ratings and ESPN and CBN and all these other ratings, and Fox blows them away. And so there's so many of these things that tell me Trump has the ear of so many people. The numbers are way up. Some people will say, well, that's for Democrats. That just tells early voting is for Democrats. I don't believe it. That's my personal view. I don't believe it. And I believe that the late voters also will go Republican. However, you can call me and text me when I'm wrong. If I'm wrong. Call me and text me, and then you ask me what I'm going to do. I'm going to preach the gospel. And I'm going to get ready for what comes next. Because Habakkuk, read Habakkuk. Habakkuk was promised salvation. You can only make this in in your sanity, in your heart, in your relationships, in your mind. You can only make this if you have a good relationship with the Lord, because He promises you good, whether it's going to be here or in heaven. Okay? So be encouraged, be strong, and I'm going to end with this right here. The other day, Pat Robertson, and he's done this before, but he gets on and he starts telling prophecies, what he's seen and what's coming, and some of them make sense. But he's saying some things that are just on the edge there as well. I mean, they're just like, oh, I'm not sure I would even say that, you know. If he's given that picture, fine, and bless him for it. He's said some things in the past that I disagreed with, and I won't go further than that. But I'm going to suggest this. This man and other men who know God's Word do know that finally something is going to happen. Something drastic is going to happen. And he's talking things drastically coming. And we need to be prepared in our hearts. We need to be prepared in our minds, reading our Bibles with our friends and our family, and be prepared for whatever happens after November 3rd, or whenever we get those numbers in. The left is not going to give up. They're going to bring something against Trump again in the next 4 years if he gets it. If Biden wins, I just won't speculate at this point. We're just going to watch and see if he's going to be the president, or if somebody else is going to be the president. You know what I mean? I'm concerned that he will be the puppet of the left, and we'll see how that goes. So let's continue to pray. Go vote, be encouraged, and read Habakkuk. And when you get to the end, play some music and sing, because it's a song. The prayer of Habakkuk is a song to God. And he comes out singing and just raising his voice to the Lord and praise. And so that's where we should be. When you get down, go read the Psalms. We're down. We complain to God like Habakkuk did, and then by the end we're worshiping again. And if you don't do it on the 32nd song or the 45th song or the 46th song, do it on the next psalm. Just go read. I was going to read the 46th psalm, but you go read that. Go read the 46th psalm and read the book of Habakkuk and be encouraged. Text me or email if you need prayer or help or questions. We'd love to hear from you. Lord, we're so grateful. We love you so very much. We pray for the people in the Philippines. Be with them, Lord God, as this disastrous typhoon covers the islands. But you have protected some of our people already, and we're so grateful for Barrio and Kay. Be with them, Lord. For others, Lord God, who are in COVID issues with COVID, we pray for Austin. Please be with him, Lord. Heal him completely and keep our people from this virus. But Lord, your will be done. And Lord, we just say like Habakkuk said, in your work. And if it is wrath, but in your work, I'm going to say, in your work, have mercy. In all of your work, have mercy on those who call out for your name. And we pray this in your holy name. Amen. Be encouraged. We love you. And go out and vote. Go out and vote. Amen.